I am Kyofuani, Mrs. Black North Georgia International Ambassador, and this is the story to my road to success. I would say my earliest memory of wanting to compete in pageantry started in college. So I'm an AKA now, but on my journey of becoming a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, they always have a strategic plan on putting members into each place of the universities, whether it's SGA, sports, things like that. So they came to me and they're like, hey, we think you would be good as a campus queen. And so they asked me to run for the Miss Phi Beta Sigma pageant. And so I was like, okay, I already was a dancer and into performing and things like that. And so that was my first introduction into doing a real pageant. And once I did that, I realized how much community service you have to do. And really, it's more of a political awareness stance, and the pageant just brings that influence that you can have on the community. And so once I realized that, I started joining other pageants after and started competing more. But it really started off as my sorority sisters proposing it to me so that we could have more members in different sectors of the university and have more influence on the campus in general. I went to Tennessee State University for undergrad, so that was my first time really being around a lot of Black people. So I grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin. It's a predominantly white area, and I started my first semester at University of Wisconsin because I was kind of too scared to leave home. But I realized that I needed to be around people that looked like me, and it just wasn't fitting anymore. I was just getting out of that. Let me try to fit in or like assimilate to someone's culture. I had kind of grown out of that. So I went to TSU, and that really shaped everything I'm doing now. At a HBCU, they prepare you for business. They prepare you for strategically planning out your life. It's not just academically. So whether you're campaigning to be in SGA or you're learning how to network in order to be in other organizations, they set that up from ground running. So as soon as I came in, I felt like my college experience was a strategic plan because I knew, okay, I needed to be in this political organization if I want to be connected to lawyers, or I need to be in this sorority if I want to get voted on for this. And so I kind of planned out my college based upon the stepping stones and the connections that I needed to be in order to get to where I needed to go. And it just transferred over to how life was after college, because that's really how it is when you're in the marketplace. You have to know people, you have to network, and you have to strategically place yourself in different organizations to get that network. And so all of those things played a part into what I do now. I would say when I graduated law school, that's when I really had a reality check of kind of the separation in the marketplace of Black and white people. I kind of knew that separation before, but because I kept going to HBCU. So for law school, I went to Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and that's at HBCU as well. So I was surrounded by Black lawyers, Black politicians, and that's all I had to work with for those 3 years, outside of like the internships I had. But once I got into the real world, I really saw that, okay, yes, there really is only 5% of Black lawyers, and that's not who I'm working with on a regular basis. So when you talk about seeing racial slurs or people using the law to their advantage, you have to be able to kind of suppress your emotions and really speak legally, because they can legally say the things that they're saying or show bias or whatever and get around it with the law. And I didn't experience that in law school. So I didn't really know what I was getting into until I actually got into the marketplace and actually started having some, racial things happen at work. And I'd be like, okay, like now I see what people were kind of trying to prepare me for, but didn't really know that it would be like this when I got into the field. So I would say mainly that, learning how to stand up for myself and not getting emotional if people say something that's a little off and being able to just vocalize, if someone's saying something wrong or treating me wrong, or advocate for whatever that stance is. So I would say that that's probably what I encountered the most that I didn't know I was going into. I would say there's been times where I've been disappointed, in the sense that I go out for a lot of things that require competition or require you to apply and things like that. You're competing against other people. So I think I've encountered rejection a lot that I don't necessarily get discouraged in the sense that I have to quit. So because I'm a dancer, you're always in an audition for a team, or because I'm a lawyer, I'm always like going against a case. So I'm used to rejection. So I wouldn't say that it's so much I've had a time where I felt like giving up, but times where it's just like, okay, I'm getting rejected. Like, what do I need to do to get back to a place where it's not a place of rejection? So I would say there's been times in my life where I've been in a good spiritual space where I've gone to God or yoga, meditation, things like that, when I'm feeling a little low, like, okay, what do I need to do to want to keep putting myself in a place where I can get rejected? But there's also been times where I've had toxic behaviors where I'm eating or going out or things like that to block out the pain of rejection. So I would say those are just different coping mechanisms that I've had to deal with to keep going, rather than having moments where I'm just like, I'm done. Because I'll keep doing it but be sad while I'm doing it, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But those are things that I've had to deal with, like just still doing it while I'm sad or disappointed, and trying to change my mindset to be positive in the times where I'm being rejected. My support system has, like anyone's, like wavered in the sense, you have friends and family that say they support you and they're there for you, but they may not understand exactly what you're going through or agree with your lifestyle. And so sometimes what may look like support to someone may not feel like it's support to you. So I've definitely had times during my journey of becoming a vegan, or even like doing pageantry in general, and just placing myself in different environments where I've got a lot of combat from friends and family that don't necessarily believe in my lifestyle. But that doesn't mean that they didn't support me. They tried to support me in the way that they can and show up, but sometimes that support isn't conducive for your advancement if someone is not in alignment with what you believe in. And so sometimes you have to reject support from people, and that's okay to just go into a place where you are in one with whatever your assignment is and keep moving forward like that. And so I've had support, but I've also had to reject support so that I can complete the mission for the assignment that I'm on. I would say both my husband and my mother have played very vital roles in my entire journey. So prior to getting married, I relied more on my mom when it came to maybe moves that I was making for school or for career and things like that. And then now that I'm married, I've definitely relied on my husband a lot to support the different things that I've gone in. So whether I'm just needing him to be a graphic designer for me to do marketing for my pageantry or our business, or whether I'm just needing him to be a listening ear for whatever I'm encountering from most different people, I would say that those two have played a major role, because I've had to have them in different roles, like a business role or a family role, and they've been able to step in and be that support system. I would say the first pageant that I was actually nervous for was the Miss Black USA pageant. So I did that one almost 2 years ago now. And so that was my first major platform that was on a national scale, that was on TV and radio and things like that. And that kind of made me nervous in the sense that you're around so many people that are kind of on the same level as you, in a sense. They're all doing really well, and you guys are all supposed to be in a supportive role. So you're in a place where you're like, how do I differentiate myself but also be supportive of other Black women at the same time? So that's always that conflict when you're in competition. You don't want to be too competitive, but you also like have to be able to separate yourself. So that would be the first time that I was kind of nervous, in the sense of, how do I separate myself? How do I not be so robotic? Because I was coming straight out of law school then, and I went through this stage where I feel like I started to lose my personality because I'm just like head in the books all the time, and I'm just, not in that entertainment role. So that was my first coming out to get back into entertainment. And so I'm going into a room with all these women that are very vibrant and have these big personalities. They've been in these environments for years where they can just have that big personality. So I had to pull that out of myself again, like, okay, like, you're not in a serious setting. Like, you need to be able to show personality and be nice and like let people in that sense, and not be on a defensive mechanism. And so that was nerve-wracking for me, to be able to be vulnerable on stage and not be defensive in a sense. And it was definitely a challenge, but I think after just going through that whole week, you go through a week of pageantry before the actual competition. So going through that week and getting to know the girls, and just being able to tell my story and not being judged, made it easier when it came to the actual pageant to be a little bit more vulnerable when I was in front of the judges. Now, I don't think that I was as vulnerable as I could have been, but it was a learning experience. When I went back and watched the tapes, I'm like, okay, I can see where I was tense, and so that next time it's like, okay, like, don't be as tense during this, practice that answer and things of that nature. I would say a time where I really knew that pageantry was a place that could take me to the next level would be I connected with the Bake Good nonprofit organization when I was living in Houston. I had already been on this journey of working with the homelessness and doing like community gardens and things like that, and I started to transition my advocacy to be health and environmental justice. And so before I was just promoting myself as my pageantry title, it would be really hard to get people to try to donate to my organization or to find people to just collectively come together to do things. But once I got into pageantry, it was more of an environment where the other queens or just organizations in general, for some reason, people like titles, and it's not, I go through this battle all the time, like, why do I have to say who I am in order to get collaboration? But that's just the world that we live in, and you have to work with that sometimes. But once I was able to use the pageantry title, I did find that opened more doors for people to connect with me and to collaborate and provide more resources so that I can bring awareness to these things. But we had a really big event about 2 years ago, and we were able to feed like 300 families. We had like a warehouse, and then a church also gave us a space to provide food and things like that, and we were able to provide them boxes, hot food. We even were able to pay for a couple people to stay in some hotels that didn't have anywhere to go and had children and things of that nature. And so whenever I'm able to make a really big impact like that, that's when I know that I'm in the right space. And so that event was one time where I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. It's not just about the beauty or the glitz or the competition. It's really, I'm out here making an impact on the community that I'm living in. I am the current Miss Black North Georgia International Ambassador, and what that means to me is that I'm a change agent for my community, not just locally in Georgia, but internationally. I'm able to connect with other queens that live in other countries so that we can further the initiatives, and specifically the initiatives of health and environmental justice, as I truly believe that that is what's plaguing our community. And if we're able to tackle that we'll be able to go to the next level and take our community out of the bondage that they've been in. And so this title means to me taking my people, Black people, internationally and locally, out of bondage into freedom through their health and through the environment that they live in. There's a lot of ways that I try to stay up to date with the current news or just any crisis that are going on in the community. So I do watch the news a lot, social media is a really big one. And then also just actually going into the community. So we do a food drive every other Saturday. And so me just being able to talk to the community, they are able to tell me like, hey, this is going on. I know this family that needs this. And that's how I really stay up to date, just from word of mouth from people, and then also going to go do the market research on my own. I would say that I definitely stay positive based upon teachings from growing up. So growing up, my mom always told us that, we're not like the other kids. We can't do what other kids do from a spiritual sense. My mom is very spiritual, and I grew up knowing that we kind of live in a land of sin. That's what they would say, or just like a corrupt world. And so I've always been taught that we have to be the light that brings the word, that brings the inspiration to people so that we can draw them closer to God. And so I really took heed to that when I was younger. And that's kind of what brought me more into the nonprofit world, where I'm like, I know that people are dealing with the spirit of depression, or dealing with poverty and things like that. And so if I can bring them that little sense of hope that might bring them closer to God, or might just bring them closer to a higher level of themselves, then they can make it a little bit longer. And so I've just kind of kept that where I'm like, my situation isn't as bad as theirs, so I need to be that positive person that shows them, hey, if we just change our mindset on what this current situation is, then we will see it in a different perspective and see it in a different light. Being Miss Black North Georgia International means being a light, being a change agent. It means being a role model for others. It definitely keeps me intact of being disciplined in what I say I'm gonna do. I can't just one day say I'm supporting justice and then the next day that I'm doing something against justice, or I can't one day say that I'm supporting positivity and Black women and then the next day then I'm talking down to them. And so for me, not only does it create accountability for myself to be a role model for my community, for younger girls that are looking to do similar things that I've done, but it also charges me to continue to make change like I said I was gonna do. Being successful as Miss Black North Georgia International Ambassador means making an impact on people. So I believe I have made an impact thus far, as I've stayed consistent with providing resources for the community, giving them free groceries and things of that nature. But it really just looks like changing one person or two persons. There's not a specific number on it, but as long as I'm making some type of difference on the people in my community, and if I can expand that to internationally, then that's what success looks like to me. This is what the future looks like for me. What I love about the Miss Black International Ambassador pageant is that they have a Mrs. division. So that is for married women that are in pageantry, and we focus on the Black family and what we do as Black women. So for me, being a wife, a mother, and a pageant queen all go one in together. When it's all said and done, I want my child, because I have one right now, and if I do have more children in the future, my children to be able to say that I made change in the world. So right now we have a nonprofit, Freedom of Faith Food Bank, and that's where we do most of our community service for my pageantry through. And so if we could expand that to have a building, to do a soup kitchen, garden, academics for kids, and things of that nature, I would love to be able to pass that down to my children and them to be proud to know that I had something that was not just for profit, but that was for impact into the people that we love and for the people that we want to support and advance in the community. To keep up with my journey, you can follow me at Dr. Kyofuani on Instagram, or follow our nonprofit page at Freedom of Faith Food Bank. We would definitely love support of volunteers at our food drive, sponsors, donations, things of that nature that can always keep up with the advancement and the mission that we're going to. You could also follow our business page at legallyblackstore.com, and on there you'll be able to see the different legal advocacy things that we're doing around health and environmental justice, keep up with the blogs, and keep up to date with how we're moving in our community and the things that are going on within that realm. I am Kyera Ofwani, your next Mrs. Black North Georgia International Ambassador, and this is Then, Now, Next.